Life sprung forth as a defense against chaos. Intelligent machines who can reconfigure their bodies into vehicles, machinery, animals, and weapons. Corroded after ages of growth and exploration, a call for change exploded into a violent uprising between the heroic Autobots and the tyrannical Decepticons. Their world torn apart. The leaders, Optimus Prime and Megatron, took their war across space, eventually stranding the warriors on a new battleground, a small planet called Earth. Fighting as robots in disguise to determine the fate of the universe, they are the Transformers.
Stage voice!
Stage voice!
Welcome Rik Alvarez and Jim Sorenson!
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for TFcon? I am the R-I-K, that is the J-I-M. And this is a deeply personal panel. I am Rik Alvarez, this is Jim Sorenson, author. This man's forgotten more about Transformers than I'll ever know. I was the former creative manager of Transformers at Hasbro. And tonight we are going to talk about the so-called Binder of Revelation. Has anyone ever heard of the Binder of Revelation? A lot of you.
Does it not exist?
We're looking at it. It's on the screen.
So it is a real document. This is a living document, and what that means is that it's a document that can change and evolve as the brand changes and evolve, and new characters come into beings, and new creative managers, design directors come on board, new films are made, new characters added. This was the reason I was hired at Hasbro. A little bit of background on me. I'm one of you guys. I was told my first day at Hasbro, you know, Rik, the reason we hired you was because you can articulate a thought. And I wasn't quite sure what to make of that. Thank you? I guess. Is that a shot at everybody else? I don't know. But this is the reason I was hired. Before I was hired, the binder was the idea of Aaron Archer and the creative team at Hasbro. I was already consulting for them, and they had reached out to a number of individuals who had shown some deep knowledge of the fan. Benson Yee, Simon Furman, me, and they brought us to Hasbro one day. It was a few days. They put us up, and all day long we just had meetings about different aspects of Transformers in the hopes of creating a brand Bible. And then once they did interviews with us, they sat us down, they had a professional interviewer come in, ask us questions. How did that make you feel? What do you think is the most important aspect of it? What do you feel can be lost? What do you think Transformers means? Who do you think the most important characters are? They interviewed us for a couple days. After that, Aaron reached out and said, hey, we need someone to put this all together in a coherent fashion. And we need someone to kind of like pick and choose what are the most important aspects, who are the most important characters, and really tell us what our brand is. Because there's so many different ideas, so many different iterations, and so many different characters. Let's say somebody new comes on board, where do they start? So I was hired to create the Binder of Revelation in conjunction with a whole bunch of other people. So this was a deeply personal experience for me. We created 25 prints that had, of what you're going to see on screen. They have some kind of stealth chip inside of them and invisible ink to determine where they came from and what number they are in case they ever leaked out into the public. These were documents that were meant to be given to IDW at the time, given to Paramount, to Activision, to people who were more than just a licensee, a trusted partner, and give them the opportunity to create something that we can then add to the brand. And there was only 25 copies made. I don't have one. That's kind of heartbreaking. But it kind of lays out the entire history of Transformers from a 20,000-foot view. Everything you see in the Binder of Revelation is not set in stone. It's just a guide to give people an opportunity to tell stories from, to create their own stories. So, with that being said, Jim, I'm going to join you on stage, and we can delve into this.
So I guess the first thing that comes to mind is you had called it the so-called Binder of Revelations. What was it called internally? I know that name kind of came around somewhat organically, but what was it pitched as? Please.
I can't remember who exactly came up with that name. I want to say it was Eric Siebenahler, or as we called him in the office, Seabass. Please call him that this weekend. He's here.
So,
Yeah.
So this document was something that's been alluded to by the creators for a long, long time, and we've known about it since, at least 2010 or so.
Right, and some of the art you're going to see is just concept art. It's nothing that's set in stone. It is a foundation for creative people to take and develop what they need to develop for video games, for comic books, for film, for television.
Yeah, and I'll read this section. The third paragraph here says, note that much of this account is left purposefully broad and general, so as to leave plenty of room for creative interpretations. So again, I think it's really clear in the context of reading the document that as much as we've called it the Binder of Revelations, it's not intended to lock the brand into any kind of vision. It's supposed to be a springboard.
Well, it's supposed to be a springboard, but it's supposed to create it's supposed to allude to a timeline, and we'll get into the epochs. And that's
where we are now.
Okay, so it's not set in stone, but what we did to create the Binder of Revelation is someone had to sit and watch every single episode of Transformers Entertainment that had ever been created, read every single comic book, every single book, research weird, obscure manga, UK stuff, and kind of pick and choose what the most important parts of the story were. What were the parts that continued to repeat? What were the themes that we saw in Transformers? What were the most important parts to you guys? And I think that's a lot of why I was chosen. What were the most important parts to us of what the brand is? And we kind of broke it down into the epochs. And the first one is the origin. And for the origin, I always loved what Simon Furman created. There were these two gods in another universe, and they're in an eternal struggle. And Primus pulls Unicron into our reality in order to destroy him. Boom, he goes flying that way. He hits a chunk of rock. That rock becomes Cybertron. His body is spread out throughout the surface. Unicron flies the other way. He solidifies. He becomes the Chaos Bringer that we know. And like magnets, they're just attracted to each other. And over time, millions and billions of years, they're just drawn to each other until there's a battle. War of the Primes. So, in the first war, Primus, Cybertron, couldn't fight. He didn't have a body like Unicron does. He hit this asteroid. His body was spread out throughout this entire asteroid. So he created 13, we'll just say 13 for now. He created 13 warriors, 13 archetypes of who became Transformers. These 13 archetypes gives an explanation as to why only 1/13 of the population are beast. 1/13 of the population are minicons or small robots. 1/13 of the population are what we would describe as female. 1/13 are intellectuals or deviants.
And that brings us to the third epoch.
Fall of the primes. So nothing lasts forever. Jealousy happens. And you can call it a love triangle. Maybe. I don't know. But there's Solus Prime, there's Megatronus, and there's Prima. Kind of get where I'm going with this? Something happens, Solus gets in the way, oh, she's dead.
There's a very Olympian feel to it. Was that intentional?
Yes. And when we get to Liege Maximo, with that art, you understand what we're going with that. So, Megatronus slaughters accidentally Solus Prime. He is crushed. That fury, he kind of breaks his kyber crystal, turns into a Sith, and the flames come out, and he becomes what we describe as the Fallen. I see you have your hand raised up. I will give out high fives later.
We'll try to save some time, but we have it's a long document.
We're going to be here for a few hours. Okay. So the age of the prime, or the War of the Primes, ends with the Primes breaking up and splitting up, kind of like the Eternals did. They all go their separate ways. Quintus is like a Johnny Appleseed. He goes and he wants to seed life on other planets, which is why life on other planets is so much smaller than the Autobots and Decepticons, because Micronus is Johnny Appleseed. He goes and he seeds life throughout the cosmos, which is why life in general is human-sized, because he was tiny. Quintus goes off. His descendants are the Quintessons.
Was this a typo?
The Age of Wrath?
That says Wraith. So, yes. Epoch 5, the Golden Age.
Yeah, the Golden Age. So, at this point, the Primes, the 13, have fallen into legend. Think of it as Middle-earth, all right? There's prosperity in this world. People are happy. They're going about their lives. Cybertron looks gold, right? They're exploring the universe. Space Bridge Network is up and running. People are happy. It's the Golden Age. Nothing gets better than the Golden Age. And then you get to the political divide. And we all saw Transformers 1. Transformers 1 is a film that I can point to and say, that person read the binder of Revelation. Because I'm sitting there the whole time going, yep, yep, oh, yep, okay, yep, awesome, well done.
You just had to make it political, didn't you? That's the rise of the Decepticons.
So we can kind of skip over the Optimus Megatron feud, right? There's we all know that story, right? They're friends, they're not friends. Will they? Won't they? Ross Rachel. I like to think that at the end of the epochs, they kind of live in a cabin together, like by the Cyber Lake. Civil War. I mean, what else is there to say? We all know that. That's 1984. Civil War between Autobots and Decepticons. And that their battle spreads throughout the universe. They come to Earth. Any questions? Anything you want to say, Jim?
Well, I'm very familiar with that era, and I suspect that actually most of the people in the audience are fairly familiar with that one too. So, but it does bring us to Epoch 8, the Exodus.
All right. That was based... All right, so... Day one. Hey, Rick, welcome to Hasbro. We got this idea for a video game called War for Cybertron. I'm going to put you in charge of that. Yes. What is it about? I don't know. Well, when does it take place? Oh, it takes place before the G1 cartoon. Okay. Thanks. So the Exodus was basically the story that we tried to tell in War for Cybertron. That went very well, so we made Fall of Cybertron. And if the powers that be had their way, we would have had a cartoon movie based on that.
Ooh.
And
I'd watch it.
Can we do sidebars or can we not?
I think we can totally do sidebars.
Okay. So you guys just heard that that Kirkman's going to do G.I. Joe versus Transformers, and he's going to make the animated universe. All right.
That's a good reaction.
I like that reaction.
Yeah.
All right. So 10 years ago, here comes me and my crew, and we did some test animation. It was black and white, except for the color red. It starts off with the Joes, and they're in a ship. They're all gearing up. They're checking their guns, right? Red light flashes. Doors to the plane open. They all jump out. There's stuff blowing up everywhere. They're falling through the clouds. You see jets and stuff fly through the clouds. Clouds open up, and it's Cybertron. We flipped it on its head. So we said, G.I. Joe versus Transformers doesn't take place on Earth. It takes place on Cybertron, because the threat on Cybertron is human. It's Cobra Commander, and Optimus has called in the Joes for help. So I showed that. It was about a minute 25 long. And I showed that to the gentleman who directed G.I. Joe Resolute. And then he went on to do the Voltron Legendary Defenders on Netflix, and then he directed Across the Spider-Verse. Joaquin Dos Santos. Very nice guy. And he's like, yes, I need that. I want to make that. The Joe team was all for it. The Transformers team said, why are we going to do the Joe team any favors? We don't need you. You need us. And this isn't working in our plans. And so the whole thing was scrapped. And that footage, I don't know, it's on a disc somewhere in the vault. Who knows? Who knows? I don't have a copy of it. But we did some additional panels of it. And the end of that story was they're getting back on the Sky Striker, or the ship. It's only Duke, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes that survive, and Wild Bill, because he's got to pilot the thing. And Scarlet says, Snake Eyes, let's go. And he turns around and he points, and across the way you see a building, and the red Arashikage symbol is lit up in the building. And that's where it ends. We don't know what it means. Who knows? We left it open that someone's going to take this and make a sequel. We thought the sequel would be on Earth with Destro, and that the HISS tanks would be they would be like buses, and they'd transform, and the cop cars would transform into like stun vehicles. And
you definitely have a mystery box storytelling bone in your body. I can tell. We'll talk about it a little later. He was telling me about another pitch he had.
Okay, so that was G.I. Joe Transformers. There was one cool scene that we did. I just want, before we get back to this, it was in Ratchet's lab, and Snake Eyes is going, and he pulls out his sword, and he looks at Ratchet's laser scalpel, and he goes, and he puts his sword down, and he takes the laser scalpel.
Shades of the mechanic in there. So the ninth epoch, Earth activation. I think we've hit the volcano, haven't we?
Yeah. Love it or hate it, I love escalation, devastation, infiltration. I love those comics. I love the stuff that Simon wrote. And that's basically a very loose telling of the first episode. They crash on Earth. Maybe they crash on Earth. I, in my head, always envisioned that Optimus would go into the ocean, and he's climbing over a hill, and what do you expect to see? You expect to see the Nemesis, right? But it's the Ark, and the Ark's crashed into an underwater volcano. And he's like, oh, crap.
I like the mixing in of the classic imagery.
I like flipping things
around.
Yeah.
without being slavish. Yeah.
Right. So Earth activation is just, they get to Earth, they meet some kids, they put the kids in danger.
Child endangerment is tight.
It's basically what Batman does.
That works out well for most of them. Ascension, the 10th epoch.
Remind me of what the basic breakdown of this epoch is.
Is
this the one where he dies?
It looks like it. Yeah, in the end, in Chicago, where Optimus sacrifices nearly everything.
Optimus dies in this one.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Optimus dies.
You could see the movie influences in here, too.
Well,
You're talking about KSI.
Him dying is one of those things that has to happen in the story, right? Optimus dies, and then behold, he is risen. Listen, I'm just taking what other people did and putting a spin that works for the modern day on it for someone else to take and say, all right, Optimus is going to die. What's our way of bringing him back? I love how in the Bay movies, in the first one, they're like, we got to kill Megatron. Let's shove the AllSpark in his chest. And the second movie, it's like, we got to bring back Megatron. Let's shove the AllSpark in his chest.
I mean, it's the right tool for literally every job.
Yeah. Oh, well, if there's time later, remind me to talk about the Guardians of the AllSpark.
Guardians of the AllSpark.
Guardians of the AllSpark. That was the original pitch for movie 4.
So the 11th epoch is the return to Cybertron.
They go back home.
There we go.
So a lot of this, what was happening at the time? IDW, as I like to call it, IDWA. Dink Roche, amazing work. Casey Collar, amazing work. Those guys that More Than Meets the Eye, that Robots in Disguise run, to me, that is just as good as Beast Wars Season 2 and 3. That is some of the best writing. And that's basically, it's nails, non-affiliated indigenous life forms returning to Cybertron. That's what we had pitched for the show that comes after Prime, which never happened, which involved the 13, but not as you think.
Was that Iron Magnus?
No.
Oh, that's a different one.
No, that was Thundertron.
Oh.
So the show after Prime was supposed to be Thundertron, and there's 13 pirates. And they're each from a different colony. And Cosmos was from Gobatron. And you didn't see Gobatron, but we created this panel where like you see the planet explode in his visor and it leaves the apple core.
I would have paid good money to see that. So, and the 12th epoch is Unicron.
Right.
And that's pretty much the
right. Unicron comes
movie?
back. It's the 84 movie in some way, right? Not necessarily Optimus dying and Rodimus ascending. Some way. I love how they did it in IDW where Starscream gets involved and he sacrificed himself, and Starscream is the hero of the story. I really love that. But spoilers for something that happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of spoilers in this for random sort of stuff. And the 13th, I believe, and final epoch is a new universe.
So this was supposed to be what comes later. What happens after the story that we all traditionally understand. New stories created by someone else who hasn't even been born or someone who hasn't even worked at Hasbro yet. There was a pitch for something which it died very quickly because Aaron said, we will never do a show that's called The Last Transformers. And it was a show that took place in the distant future, and there were only 2 characters that returned. The Ghost of Starscream and Iron Magnus, who was Ironhide, and he had the Magnus hammer, the forge, as a cane. And at the time, we were behind the scenes at Hasbro. We were developing 2 play patterns that never quite took off. One was rare earth magnets, and potentially stuff could hover over a placemat or something. And the other one that they were really pushing for was glow-in-the-dark stuff, like you break the Energon cube,
and
right?
Yeah,
but there's glass in that stuff.
So real safety concerns.
Yeah, so we put a lot of money and development into that, but it never really worked out because of the safety issues.
And that's how the Binder of Revelation started. That's the first chapter. Yeah, we pretty much went through every page. The last page is talking about the fundamental conflict of the Transformers being Optimus versus Megatron, which again I think is something that's very familiar to anybody in this room.
And something that's fundamental in Transformers, Optimus versus Megatron, but I love the Megatron redemption story. I love that Megatron comes around and he gives Hot Rod a hard time, and he finds a path to redeeming himself in his own eyes. he doesn't really care what other people think. It's about him redeeming himself to himself and maybe to Optimus.
And of course, that's way after this.
Yeah. So after I had departed, and after Aaron and Eric and we had all left Hasbro, someone, we don't know who, added more stuff to the binder.
Yeah, and so we're not going to spend a lot. This is a huge document. This is 352 pages. So we're not going to go through the whole thing, but a very large chunk of it, if you're interested, chat with me afterwards. But a very large chunk of the binder is going over to character profiles for the Autobots and Decepticons. And they go through different tiers. Again, keeping in mind the audience of this is going to be oftentimes licensors, people who aren't necessarily coming at it from the perspective of fans or seasoned creators, but new creators who are interested in this. So you have your main tier characters, A, B, C tier characters.
Right. So originally it was broken down to A, B, C, D, and E characters, and then everybody else. So your top tier characters: Optimus, Bumblebee, Megatron, Starscream. And then it broke it down into B characters and C characters. These are the characters that you generally want to focus on. So this art here, it's got elements from all over the place. It's got elements from the film. It's got elements from Prime. It's got elements from like animated inside of it. This, I believe, was drawn by Emiliano and directed by Eric Siebenaler.
Yeah.
I think this one might have even been drawn by Siebenaler. And they're just kind of reference guides that Optimus should always have that chest, right? He should have a certain silhouette. He can turn into different trucks, he can turn into different things, but he typically colors will be red and blue, not green.
Yeah, you laugh, but I mean, like, that's a real consideration for keeping the brand consistent. And something else that kind of leapt out at me the first time I read it was talking about the polarities. And the document goes into more detail later, but effectively, they created for this document a sort of Cybertronian zodiac based on the 13, where every Transformers character has a primary polarity and a complementary one. So, I'm a Pisces and I'm born in the year of the dragon. So, Optimus Prime's primary polarity is Primian. That's an awkward sentence, and I wish I hadn't said it. And his complementary polarity is Alphanian. So,
Right.
Alphatron.
Alphanian, Gordon Shumway from the planet Melmac.
Oh, okay. So
that's what that's meaning.
Well, so what was the idea behind the polarities? Because I found
that was
pretty
actually,
interesting.
there was another company involved in this that had developed the brand Bible for Halo. And they kind of took that idea and put it in there. And when you're working with a company that has lots of moving parts, you have licensing, you have marketing, you have design, and then you have your licensors, you kind of have to pick and choose your battles. And that was a battle I didn't want to fight. I'm like, you know what? That's interesting. Leave it in. I'm not going to fight that battle. This is actually concept art that Eric did that was pre-Prime. We were toying around with Optimus having different trailers, and the different trailers would have different things that they can do. One was a construction, one was like a scuba thing. You like scuba?
Yeah, I love the art in this. And interestingly enough, this copy that's come to me, this was a leaked copy. So this copy that's come to me, some of the art is missing. So you'll come to, it's a PDF. So, sometimes you get to pages and they just didn't render for whatever reason.
Windblade was never in the Binder of Revelation when I was there. She had just been created.
Yeah, and you can actually see, just like in the PDF itself, in the bottom right corner, they have little file markings, which Windblade doesn't have. So me as an outsider, I was able to come through and figure out which parts of the binder were in the original draft, and then, as Rik said, a living document, which parts somebody at Hasbro or one of its licensors added to later. But they kept the entire format, the fonts, even the idea of the polarity.
Yeah, that's crazy, because I didn't have those files at all.
Someone did.
So someone recreated those.
Yeah.
And I don't know where this art came from. We don't know. We don't know who wrote that. Or
This is another
where it came
page
from.
that wasn't, in that first draft that Rik was involved in.
Strong arm didn't exist at that time.
Yeah, but she's a Alfanian with a complementary polarity of Vectorian.
And I kind of wonder, like, did they just pick those at random?
I wonder. Well, there is a guide later on in the book. And like I said, I don't think it's actually interesting to go through several, at least 100 pages of bios. So I am not...
This
well,
was split
we have
up.
an hour, right? So
Right. This was split up like tier A, tier B, tier C, and then someone came after us and just kind of said, here's a bunch of bios all together.
Notice that Windblade and, oops, there we go. I went very quickly. So now we're back in the tiers,
Okay.
There we go.
So,
but you can see that the characters that they added don't have, Drift, they don't have the tiers
Drift
to them.
Drift actually did exist
Cheetor.
in the original draft.
Oh, interesting.
Because I was a big fan of Drift, but not that page. His page was very different.
Oh, I wonder if they
it was
took-
just art I took from IDW.
I wonder if they took out the original Drift.
They did. They took it out.
Is it
and they
not
replaced
here?
it with that. Oh, go back to that Ironhide real quick.
Sure.
That's Transformers Prime Ironhide. And someone said, but Ironhide dies in Dark of the Moon. Yeah. Well, kids are going to be confused. This is not a show based off Dark of the Moon. Kids don't know that. Kids know that he dies in the movie. So you have to take him out. I'm like, what? It's not even a show based off the movie. So Ironhide came out. He was in all the concept art. And we didn't have anyone to replace him. And I said, Bulkhead. And I had to make an argument for Bulkhead because they understood Bulkhead as just being an animated character. And I said, no. Characters exist in many different iterations. Optimus has existed in all these different shows. We can take a character like Bulkhead and pull him out of animated and put him into the new show.
I'm so glad you did that because it really helps cement the character as a real A-tier level character, although in here he's probably B or C tier.
Yeah, but it kills me that the only way you can get that toy was through Takara. There were some battles I fought and lost at Hasbro with the design team as, hey, we got to get Breakdown out. Hey, we got to make that Mega Arachnia where the propellers become legs. There's lots of battles that I tried to fight and lost.
I can see the animated influence in Prowl's head right there.
Yes. Yes, that was done by Eric Siebenaller.
Yeah, B tier, huh, Grimlock?
Yeah, Grimlock. Yeah. And then this one, I kind of said, hey, let's give him the feet from the movie because I like that idea that maybe he's a skater. And I don't mean like, oh, dude, yeah, that's so cool. No, I mean like Mirage has special powers. So at the time, Nick Roche, or as Nick Roche, he was working on a comic book that never came to fruition. It was the Minibots, and I think it was called Secret Powers, and they all had different powers. The original season 1 episode, Brawn had that drill, and there's the magnet, and Jazz has that hook. So he was developing a comic book where all the original Minibots had different powers. And I'm like, I really like that. Mirage can become invisible. Skywarp can teleport. I was just asking a question. Is Sideswipe a guy who can just drive on his feet? I don't know.
C tier, by the way. I found the Bulkhead.
Yeah.
C tier. That's a shame right there.
Yep. Crosshairs was another one that they
now
added
we're back in new pages stuff. Again, no tier list. That's another hint that we're seeing something new.
And this is just taken right out of the style guide from the film and dropped in.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of money creating artwork that was ambiguous for the binder. Fix-It never showed up again.
Not yet.
So Heatwave.
Oh, look, missing artwork. There we go. Failed to
Do you
render.
guys remember they were doing those building block transformers where you pulled them apart and put them back together? And there was like random Heatwave from BotCon that was like shattered glass Heatwave. Hero Mashers, thank you. That is a good example of someone not understanding the brand and using Google to find reference material. Because what they meant to do was Heatwave from, thank you, Rescue Bots.
Yeah.
Fortress Maximus, Defense War, none of those guys were in there.
Yeah, no, these look sort of Combiner Wars / Titans Return era to me. So, but we don't actually know who added these. So like I said, I'm not going to spend all our time going through bios. There's a lot of them.
There is some really cool Megatron art though, if we can show that.
Yeah, let's look at Megatron.
Yeah, I like the idea of that part coming off his back and becoming an axe.
Yeah, that's cool. So there wasn't really, Sentinel Prime, he's fun.
That is a total amalgamate. Again, this was supposed to be ambiguous, right? We loved animated. And so we're like, well, we got to base it off animated because that's the best Sentinel Prime, right? That's right, he's got the chin.
Yeah. He's a good-looking bot. Movie face right there.
We did take a lot of the War for Cybertron art and put it in there.
Yeah, and Starscream, of course.
So I was in charge of finding all the art that was in the original version and saying, all right, this is an acceptable piece of art to use for this character. This is an acceptable piece of art to use for that character, rather than just Googling things and saying, oh, Jin Bao Starscream, let's put that in there. Yeah, I think Eric did that one. What? You're welcome.
Yeah. I've noticed you went right from main character Decepticons to B tier and totally skipped the A tier, but that's okay. That's okay. Inferno, he's fun.
I forget why Inferno was in there. I can't for the life of me remember why he would be a B character anyway.
It kind of feels like Soundwave and Shockwave should have. There we go.
There's Soundwave.
Yeah,
All right, quick story. My first day there, I'm talking with the lovely Paula Walsh. She was in marketing, and she says, Rick, who's your favorite Transformer? I'm like, oh, I like this guy, I like that guy. She's like, I like Soundwave and Ravage. And I'm like, what? She's like, Ravage. I'm like, why are you saying it like that? It's pronounced Ravage. Years later, we were at San Diego Comic-Con. She comes up to me, and she's like, Rick, I just got transferred to the Star Wars team. I don't know anything about Star Wars. I'm like, you've never seen the movie? She's like, no. What if somebody asked me a question? Just tell them your favorite thing about Star Wars is when Han and Chewie are hanging onto the feathers of the Millennium Falcon.
Man, solidly movie frenzy.
Another sidebar. Remember the canceled tank Frenzy? It was like kind of core class, a little bit bigger than core class, and then FunPub put it out as Eject and Rewind. So I am an evil person. We were going to put that out as Rumble in blue, and then I wanted to call the factory halfway through production and just switch the name to Frenzy. Leave it blue, but just change the name to Frenzy. And David Vonner, who was at Marvel at the time, he would call up the factory all the time. He's like, yo, cats, I need you to flip Spider-Man upside down in the package. Just because. And I loved that it created talking points for people to go online. Did you see that Spider-Man's upside down, or that Silver Surfer is now transparent? And that's what I was going for. And that's where the War for Cybertron Sound Blaster came from. The original concept was, hey, halfway through production, just make them Sound Blaster colors. And they didn't understand that, so they just released Sound Blaster later. To me, and to me, Blitzwing permanently has the three faces from animated. But
Yeah, you can see that helmet in there.
The Blitzwing that Joe Kite and I worked on with the 3 faces and generations, that's because I love the faces. I love that he's a triple changer and he has 3 different personalities. I don't even remember him being called Hightower. I remember him being called Hook, and
no, I think Hook was one of Unicron's 3 minions in the
Hook,
comic.
Line, and Sinker. Yeah,
that's who you're thinking of.
Right.
Bludgeon. There we go. Oh, and some new ones. Some new
Menasor was just
ones.
added in at some point. Bruticus Maximus was like, where did that name come from? That to me reminds me of like someone looked at those like the Energon combiners.
Yeah.
And said that's his name, right? Sure.
Bruticus Maximus. Why not?
I don't want to like crap on people. Like that's not like what I'm trying to do, but there's a reason why. You guys know I love Beast Wars, right? Like all my tattoos are Beast Wars.
No, Noah is an original one.
Noah's an original one. I think the
added.
idea was that it was Sharkticons that's what it was supposed to be, Sharkticons.
G tier. Wow. You made a G tier just for Triptychon.
Oh, you know why? Because we really wanted Triptychon to become the nemesis. And that's where that came from, because we were deep into Fall of Cybertron at that point. This thing took like 2 years to do, by the way.
And the rumors were it cost in the neighborhood of $300,000. Does that sound like ballpark?
That sounds like $100,000 short of where our budget actually was.
So this is an expensive document. So, and then it goes into the legendary characters, and it goes through the 13 again.
So I was the one who put the order to them. And I actually got to name some of the 13. Alchemist, Amalgamus, I put Onyx in there.
So you got to name Alchemist. What did you think about sort of, officially connecting the dots and making him McAdams?
I really like that. And I was talking to Aaron a few months ago, and I was like, how crazy is it that they're actually making toys of the 13 the way we envisioned them? That to me is like, I never thought that would be possible. Neither did I. And here we are, and they're actually making toys, and the toys look amazing.
Yeah,
well done.
I never, like, as a fan, I never, like, looked at the 13 and said, oh my God, this is a great idea. I can't wait to explore these stories. But when the toys started dropping, I was like, no, I have to get this. I want to engage with this sort of mythology, because they did such a good job of capturing. And the 13, they have some really interesting, really non-typical Transformers profiles to them. And some of the toys are really, Onyx Primal or Prime as the Centaur and Micronus. I mean, it's really cool that they're doing it.
So that was the original Prima art that we created, and then I went back and I'm like, Eric, we got to add the Matrix to the hilt of the sword, and we can say that when the sword broke as he was striking down Megatronus, the Matrix fell from the sword.
Oh, who did this? Because this got a nice reaction.
I don't remember who did this art. That was there when I came in.
This was there already?
Yeah, and you can see, like, when you look at Liege Maximo, like, that's Loki. He's the deceiver. He's the guy who's pulling the strings behind everyone's backs, and he wants power for himself. We tried to give each of the 13 a unique artifact. So the Forge of Solus Prime, which actually showed up in Transformers Prime, that's where that came from. Nexus Prime had the Enigma of Combination. And Micronus was tiny. That was his special thing.
The Chimera Stone.
Yeah, that was one of those things that other company was like, Chimera Stone. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. Quintus.
Oh, so that thing behind Quintus, listen, love it or hate it, Beast Machines is a part of Transformers history.
I love Beast Machines.
Anybody get the reference behind? Right, it's supposed to be the Oracle.
Oh, I've seen this document before, but I don't remember picking up on Feral Prime as an alternate name for Onyx Prime.
That was put in there later.
Oh, was that later?
It was always I want to say it was Onyx Primal.
It was at one point. I mean, I just misspoke and said that. Because in my mind, it's like,
and then they
Onyx
changed
Primal.
it to Onyx Prime.
Well, even Primus became Primus
And
Prime.
this is original art, but there was other art that we created for Amalgamus Prime.
That's fun art. I mean, he really has that sort of random, sort of gibbering mouther sort of feel to him. Oh, Alchemist art didn't show up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
The Alchemist Prime art does look a lot like the toy. Like the face is perfect to what you're getting in the toy.
And let's talk about the legendary 13th Prime, because we were chatting about this right before the panel.
You guys remember that scene in Transformers Prime where they have they pan over the 13 Prime? How many primes were there seen in that panel? 12. Because we said, you know what? We can't create everything. We shouldn't create everything. We should leave room for people who come after us to have their own ideas. Maybe their ideas will be better than ours. Maybe they'll totally reinvent things. We shouldn't name every single one of the 13. So we left it ambiguous. Of course, certain people were saying it's got to be Optimus. He's got to be the 13th. We did some concept art that made the 13th kind of look like Optimus. So our thinking was that there was the legend of the 13th. And at some point in the future, the 13th Prime would be revealed. And we never put a name to it. We never said, this is the 13th Prime. So it's interesting to see what they will do with all these toys.
But I think it's explicitly Star Saber, right? In the Star Convoy in the context of the toy line that they're doing now. But I had fun as a writer. I had fun with this concept because when I was doing the book for Renegade, who does the Transformers role-playing game, we had a chapter on the 13, and they said we want to do everybody who's ever been a 13. So it wound up including some of the obscure stuff that Fun Pub did and whatnot, some of the stuff that aren't really part of the proper 13, but in one media or another, like Logos Prime had been implicated to be one. And when I got to the 13th Prime, I had fun saying, no one knows. It's a Prime yet to be revealed. It could be Optimus, it could be Rodimus, it could be Sentinel, it could be a PC. I loved the idea that it could be one of your characters because that, to me, that was the story beat that you guys were playing with. It could be Bumblebee, it could be someone yet to be forged.
I like to think that it is a character that hasn't been created yet. That someone 20 years from now is going to create a character that resonates so deeply with the fandom that maybe that person is the 13th.
Yeah.
Unicron is a part of the lore. You got to include him. He's the devil. He's Satan.
Unicron's motivations are beyond those of polarity, a godlike figure who influences others, this incarnation of entropy and annihilation in the Transformers universe. So
I remember at some point there must be some wording in there that's saying that Unicron also created life, because I wanted there to be a backdoor that Tarantulas and the Tripartite Council could come from Unicron. That he also was able to create life, not on the scale that Primus did, but he created his Holy
minions?
Trinity, his unholy trinity of characters that he could send out.
yeah, and then this is brand new. This isn't part of what Rik did, the auxiliary Transformers profiles, but it goes through the concepts of combiners, headmasters.
It's crazy that they
Titans.
used the word headmasters in that document.
Why is
You
that?
couldn't say that.
Headmasters?
Yeah. Because of the implications.
Minicons.
It was the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, you'd all be thinking about school teachers.
Right.
Beast Transformers. There you go. Maximals, Predacons, Dinobots. That list is weird to me.
So something that's been omitted from this version is the Beast Wars.
Oh, so that's been taken out.
That's been totally removed.
Interesting. And then,
So after after that last section of the epochs, it talks about the Beast Wars and how it's potentially the Beast Wars could have taken place at any point in time, Just the Beast Wars that we happen to see took place right after the Ark crashed, right? The Beast Wars could happen anytime and anywhere. Which reminds me of a character I tried to make who was a grizzly bear. And I wanted to make Big Grizzly Convoy.
Big Grizzly Convoy.
And then the white version would be Polar Convoy.
Yeah. And then it goes to some of the human characters from various incarnations.
Yeah, all these guys, yeah. None of these guys were part of that.
Oh, this is the original document, I believe.
Is it?
So, well, I mean, looking at the markings, yeah. It's got the same, at least it has the same markings as all the other stuff.
Yeah, I must have had a hard time finding art for those guys. Oh, sorry, Sumdac. I love Sorry Sumdac. So in Transformers Prime, I fought tooth and nail to make Silas Sumdac.
Ooh.
Just because, no connection whatsoever. I just wanted him to have a last name.
And the
I
Vector
thought,
Prime would have definitely found a connection.
yeah, I just wanted there to be Silas Sumdac, and I lost that fight.
It has a nice alliteration to it. Lord Chumley. It's such a random selection of characters, too. Professor Colon. Yeah, right? Dr. Arkeville. Fujiyama. Professor Haley.
Yeah.
Josie Beller. A scientist. Sean Berger / Sean Berger. Yeah, and then locations is kind of a similar sort of grab bag of places that we've seen across the Transformers. Yeah, major settings on Earth: Hoover Dam, Sector 7, Shanghai, Rome. You know, I mean, obviously drawing deeply from the movie lore.
Yeah, and then does this part talk about planets too, or is that later?
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay.
So if you get past Earth.
So there were certain planets that are important to the lore of Transformers that should be known about.
I love this map. By the way.
So this map.
Mercator projection map.
So we had this big map up on the wall, and then Ben Yee, Simon Furman, and I, and they filmed us. We like took notepads and we were writing like, oh well. 6 lasers over Cybertron is over here, and the Gladiator pits are here, and we spent like a good 2 hours mapping out Cybertron.
Yeah, the center of all Transformers culture. And it goes through various Cybertronian settings, Triptychon asteroid belt, cities that we know, Autobot Hall of Records.
Yeah.
Drawing from the Marvel comics, drawing from Beast Wars, Unicron ejection site.
This was all a lot of people spending a lot of time looking over comic books, saying, "All right, that's a location,"
Yeah.
and then me getting a list and going, "Is that in the comic book?" All right, let me go look it up. And
Crystal City, you say G1 Continuity Comics.
Nobody knows everything.
Nobody knows everything.
Nobody knows everything. Not even you, Jim.
I don't. There's a lot of this stuff I don't know.
A lot of this stuff I haven't seen in over 10 years.
No. It's a nice.
Did we ever explain why Kaon looks like a mushroom? They were trying to launch the city. Is that what happened? And it got stuck halfway through?
It doesn't say that, I don't think. Maybe. Maybe that's why.
I think that was part of the War Within story from Dreamwave.
Slaughter City. And then you go into, again, a sort of random grab bag of planets. Antilla, Akilo, in alphabetical order at least. So Char.
The planet, so Thundertron, who is that pirate tiger, he is from the show that was supposed to take place. The idea of the show that was going to take place after Transformers Prime was the return to Cybertron. It never had a name, but Thundertron was the main antagonist, and he came from the planet Diaclone, which was the furthest planet, the furthest back in time, thus Diaclone.
I dig it.
Gorlin Prime.
Goo! Goo.
The planet of Go.
You guys remember Goo.
Springer remembers Go.
Moo Moo Obscura.
Pepperidge Farms remembers Go.
Yeah. Oddly, Paradise is really terrible, but Slaughter City is lovely. Pizzazz.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know the Spider Planet? Yeah.
Do you want to explain that one?
Well, yeah, that came out of Beast Wars Neo. Yeah, it was from a Beast Wars Neo manga, of all things.
This was a deep dive.
Yeah, it's a water planet. So, again, it's fun to me going through this document because you can see, like, you guys were on the wiki, like, looking at things.
You know what happens to you when you work at Hasbro?
Tell me.
You spent all day talking Transformers, and I remember one day we had a whole off-site meeting about ninjas in the G.I. Joe universe. I would go home, and I'm still otaku. I'm still a fan. I want to collect things. I went and started collecting stuff like He-Man, Batman Animated, Thundercats, because I just needed to get away from work.
No, that's sensible. And then we're in the section about vehicles, weapons, artifacts, technology. You know, interesting that some of the, you have the Triptychon Nemesis here. Omega Supreme shows up. Pearl of India. Yeah, and again, that sort of random assortment of technology that's shown up in a cartoon episode here, Transfixatron, Voltronic Galaxer, you know, stuff from the movies.
I believe we mentioned Dinobot Stick.
Death crystals, those are fun.
Crystals. Yeah.
That's a pretty piece of art.
That's randomly placed there. That was Liege Maximo's artifact.
Yeah, because we have artifacts here. Matrix of Leadership, Covenant of Primus, the AllSpark, Star Saber, Requiem Blaster, the Quill, the Forge. Yeah, now we've got some of the 13 artifacts: Enigma, Spark, Transformation Cog, Lensiers.
Yeah, so he had different lenses that would allow him to see the energon spectrum. And then we had another document that talked about all the different types of energon that existed in the world. And I think we just touched on NGEX in Prime, black energon, and then dark energon. But we had a whole piece of art created that was different types of energon. Some of this is War for Cybertron concept art.
Yeah, I always like the aesthetic of that one. Yeah, and we're still only on page 246.
Should we just go to questions?
Should we?
All right. Someone wanted to have a high five over here. There's a microphone. You're going to have to stand up.
So we can hear you. All right, we're being told we have to wrap it up now.
I have a booth. I own a toy store called Has-Been. I used to be somebody. Now I'm a has-been. So I have a booth in the dealer room. Come
I have a
talk
table
to me.
in the dealer's room. Come by. Maybe I'll bring the laptop and if there's a section that you're interested in, I can we can go into it in greater depth. It's a big document. It's a very influential document. Oh, units of Cybertronian measurement. That's fine.
Oh, we also had the formula to make energon.
All right.
Oh, that just made the wiki. All right.
But we have to wrap it up. We had a great time. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
We thought we had a little more time.
Hope it was informative. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Rick.